Hello, hi, I'm Mariayah Kaderbhai and welcome to this BAFTA Q&A for Rocks. If you want to ask a question throughout, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, so please do feel free to ask questions throughout. We'll be running for about 45 minutes and the Q&A will be available on BAFTA's YouTube channel. I just want to welcome the incredible Team Rocks. Thank you, all of you. We have got about 45 minutes to get kind of into the heart of the film and talk about your participation with it. I think that Rocks is kind of unique in filmmaking terms, as it's kind of one of the most collaborative films that I've read about and seen, with everyone's roles overlapping and everyone doing a little bit of everything to make the film come to what it is today. So I want to start with perhaps the producer, Faye Ward, and talk about how the genesis of the film came about.
Well, it started very embryonically with Sarah and I post-suffragette, meeting lots of amazing women along the journey. And we were in fact, a lot of Q&As around the world. And we started to meet lots of young women, and Sarah's got a young teenage daughter. And we just started to discuss really what it was to be a young teenager today. And Sarah and I were from London, and we talked about our experiences about being a teenager. And it sort of really just stemmed from there. Obviously, Sarah and I realised we're both old codgers, so it was not really our story to tell. So we went on to find basically the best people to tell the story with us and for us. And that's how we collected these bunch of incredible women.
So in terms of bringing this incredible team together, I suppose everything starts with the word and the written word. So Theresa, Ikoko, one of the joint screenwriters with Claire Wilson, how did you come on board to the project and how did the writing process begin? I believe it was quite unique.
Yeah, so I came on board as with everybody else, sort of from the beginning when it was just an idea and we were talking about what we wanted it to look like. We spent all of us here, and also Lucy Pardee and Jessica Straker, the casting directors, spent around, I think, maybe 9 to 10 months just meeting young people. Lucy and Jessica had met 1,500 girls in and around London. So we did workshops, went to schools, and we were just sort of looking for young people who wanted to collaborate in whatever capacity that they were willing to share in the journey of creating a story. And we found the most prevalent thing that kept popping up in these workshops and collectives that we were creating was friendship and the power of female friendship and sisterhood. And I had been working on a story about female friendship and sisterhood in dedication to my sister and Black and brown girls in London. And it just felt like what we had created was the perfect and safest soil to plant that story and maybe make it something bigger and better than I had imagined.
It is a love letter to London. It's a love letter to kind of a London we don't really ever get to see on screen, and people that we never get to see on screen, but who make up the kind of very fabric of what London is today. In terms of coming to think of kind of building the framework and the fabric and pulling together the exact story, how did that come about? Did you, Theresa or Claire or Sarah, have an idea of what you wanted the narrative to be? Or did you want it to very much come from kind of the teenage girls themselves?
So I had the narrative, and then what Claire and I did was we pasted it across the wall. So when we had discovered these girls, and it was quite a mutual, it was a response. The narrative, the reason why I shared the narrative in the first place was because I found Bukky was, for me, represented everything that I was trying to tell this story, who I was trying to tell this story to. And I thought how beautiful and how precious would it be for those girls to have the story told to them by somebody like Bukky. And then Kosar became such an obvious addition to that dynamic. So it was very much a mutual exchange. So when we brought the story to them, we put it up on walls across a room, and all of the women who you see in the cast and additionally, people who aren't seen all contributed with ideas and anecdotes and thoughts and feelings, and they developed their characters very thoroughly over a long period of time. And it was just really, everybody was just pouring into it.
And Sarah, in terms of kind of, because the film is so conceptual in the sense that, it's never been done that I can remember a film made in this way. So I suppose for yourself and for Faye, how did you even kind of get it off the starting block to kind of say, this is what we really want to, we really believe in it? But I can't imagine that, you know, without a script or without kind of a cast in place, it was an easy thing to get off the ground to begin with.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, and credit to, you know, Faye, and we had Amina Ayab Allen, and who went to, you know, some incredible backers like Film 4, BFI, we had the Wellcome Trust, who came on and went on that journey with us in a way. They, what we pitched was, as you say, something very kind of embryonic, this idea that we wanted to go on a journey with girls, and that we had these fantastic co-creators. You know, we had Theresa, Ikoko, and we had Claire, and we had Anu, and we had others, and the girls, and we wanted to build it with the young people. And the way we got them sort of engaged in the very early stages, before Theresa and Claire had even Theresa presented her narrative, was by filming a lot of the workshops on iPhones, and Anu was sort of every night cutting together little clips of the workshops with the girls that were filmed on iPhones, and then we'd share that with the executives and show them the kind of ideas we were exploring around female friendship, as Theresa said, around, you know, stories of what it is to be British, what it is to grow up as a girl in London. And they, like us, fell in love with this group of girls who were organically in the workshops forming a friendship and really honing their performance skills and boldly and generously sharing their ideas with us. And it sort of became clearer and clearer as we went what it was going to be. As Theresa's often said, we really didn't know what we were doing at the beginning. We were really sort of making it up. But that was kind of the excitement of it. And I think these girls had no clue what was going on, but they were kind of enjoying it. Weren't you, Bukky and Kosar? Were you enjoying it?
If we go to the kind of that casting process, and so coming up with the film and coming up with kind of an idea of doing a narrative around teenage girls, and maybe a set number of them set in a school, how did you even in your head kind of put a casting process in place? And then I believe you all worked together to kind of bring the cast together, in terms of, it wasn't Lucy Pardee who was a casting director, but again worked very closely with all of you, and then almost kind of the girls brought their stories to put it together. So yeah, how did that casting process even, kind of what did it look like?
Anu, why don't you talk about that?
Look, I think what Lucy has talked about this before, that she didn't have a kind of traditional casting brief of like who she was looking for. And she said in the past, like often when she's casting young women, there is a very specific brief that's often given to her. But with this, all she was looking for was finding like magical young women who wanted to go on a journey of storytelling and to own the stories themselves, and tell it in a way that they felt was true to them. And so I think that's kind of like was part of the gift of it. And she worked really closely with Jessica, and like Theresa said, met a lot of young women. And I feel like the 7 young women that you see at the center of the film, and D'Angelo, who plays Emmanuel, Rox's little brother, they came to the kind of forefront because of the energy, of their generosity, of the magic that they brought into those spaces, into the rooms. And the rooms that Lucy and Jessica ran, they weren't kind of traditional casting spaces of like trying to like play out particular scenes or learn lines or anything like that, but to create a space where the young cast could feel comfortable in improvisation and feel comfortable in like creating a space of trust and a language between all of us, between themselves, but also between us as the team. So that by the time we came to set, there was a kind of, we had almost a year and a half together, if not like a bit longer, of knowing each other and learning each other on both sides. And so, yeah, it's really testament to the spaces that were created during those workshops that, like Theresa said, the story was able to be planted, the trust was able to be built, and we were able to get to know each other in a way that I don't think would have been possible if we'd done it more kind of strictly, I guess.
We're joined by 2 of these magical young women as well. So Bukky Bakray, who plays Rox, and Kosar Ali, who plays Samaya. Did you ever want to be actresses? Was that something that you thought about before this opportunity came on board? Bukky?
I had thought about it briefly years ago. Yeah, because I love American film. I love Black film. I just love film that's done really well. So I had just thought about it briefly, but I literally just took the thought away because I didn't think it was a tangible career. So when Rocks came along, it was like, wow, Bukky, this could actually be an opportunity.
Had either of you ever seen yourself represented on screen before this?
Well, I always say this, and the reason why I never thought acting was going to be for me is because I know he saw a Black Muslim young woman on screen who was respecting her religion and who was just playing a normal role. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I never really thought acting was tangible or a career I could go into. I never thought this industry had space for me, but I guess I'm here now, so anything is possible. But yeah, I feel like there was a lot of lack of representation for Muslim Black young girls on screen. So yeah, what about you, Books?
Your friend, sorry, Bukky?
Yeah, like similarly to Kosar, I think the representation that I saw on screen for Black and brown women was often repetitive, and as much as I see a range of different characters on TV, I would love to see a range of different types of Black and brown women, because we're endless. I think women are endless in general, men are endless in terms. Everyone's such an individual. So for me, it would be sick. I've been longing to see different types of Black and brown women. So that's why I think Rocks is so special, because we get to see that.
Yeah, and it's so special because I think that you can authentically be yourselves on screen, and kind of this team and yourselves have allowed that to happen. How were you involved, kind of, this is a question for Bukky and Kosar, but also for Theresa and Claire, kind of the writing process, and how closely were you involved in that in terms of kind of putting language together, coming up with story ideas? How did you all work together in that space?
So me, Kosar, Ali, Tawida, Afi, Anastasia, we were privileged enough to be around these amazing writers in a writer's room. And I always go back to that moment because it was such a beautiful moment, being at that kind of round table, everyone sharing their ideas, Theresa and Claire generously showing us the story in blocks or beats, I should say. And that was the first time we actually explored the narrative, and we were allowed to interject our own anecdotes in the film. It was very much a scripted process, but with directed improv. I mean, in terms of going off the script, we would only chop and screw the lines here and there just to make it feel much more natural for us as first-time actors.
And how was that kind of that improv experience, Kosar? Was it a little bit nerve-wracking, or was it something that you kind of relished and really enjoyed?
Well, like Anu said, because we've got to know each other for a year by the time we started filming, and all these women were so loving and respectful, and just we could be ourselves around them. So improv wasn't even an issue, to be honest, because I was surrounded with amazing actors like Bukky, Afi, Theresa, D'Angelo, all of them, and everyone behind the camera as well. So there was no pressure. It was just being yourself and kind of going off and bouncing off of each other's energy.
And Anu, I imagine what the implications of kind of improv. I imagine kind of there might have had to be daily transcribing, or kind of what are they, can it be? It can bring another layer, I imagine, kind of to the filmmaking process that's not there before. How did it kind of change your role specifically within the film?
Well, exactly like that. Well, there's a couple of things that that Sarah wanted to put in place on set to make it as comfortable as possible. So things like we didn't call action at the beginning of a take. Often the first take would run for up to kind of as long as we felt it needed to. So some of the longest takes were up to 45 minutes. There was often 2 cameras and sometimes 3. So our editor, Maya Mafioli, had 150 hours of footage, plus all the iPhone footage that was being shot by all of the main cast every single day. And in terms of one of the jobs on set was to transcribe all the dialogue as we went, so that we could figure out as each take went, what were the kind of the most magic bits of the scenes, which bits did we want to revisit, because no two takes were exactly the same, which again must have been it was a real challenge for Maya, but I think that was also kept the kind of the magic of the scenes every single day as well.
So in terms of kind of Sarah, that kind of 2-3 camera setup, did you just kind of sometimes keep on rolling? Was that to kind of create an extra level of authenticity?
Yeah, so it wasn't really like a normal set. I mean, Theresa and Claire were there a lot. You know, Anu was there, and everybody was chiming in. We'd have 2 or 3 cameras. You know, usually 2, occasionally 3. There were moments where, you know, there's one scene that kind of sums up the process for me, where Bukky had to deliver a big emotional moment, which I hope isn't a spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen it. But we knew that was in there, and we'd done lots of talking around it, and Theresa was there at that moment, and you know, we weren't quite finding it, and Theresa went in and talked to Bukky in a room alone about, I mean, she can tell the story, but you know, then Bukky came out and delivered this extraordinary performance, and we all felt like we were watching our, you know, younger sister win at Sports Day. It was like we were all cheering her on, and it was a great moment, but it was also a telling moment in terms of how much it was a team effort and how much we were all working towards the same idea, and it was kind of whatever it took to make the girls feel comfortable, to make them find those moments. You know, it felt like more of a conversation, and as a result it was quite chaotic, and it was, you know, very lively, and it didn't feel like a kind of rigid film set in that way. There was lots of laughter and lots of chat, and these very long takes, but I think that was creatively very energizing for everybody.
And in terms of, you mentioned kind of one of the techniques that's used so well in the film is kind of the insertion of the iPhone footage, and kind of the girls again claiming hold of part of the narrative. I suppose, Claire, kind of when you're kind of creating and writing every single day, and maybe you're seeing kind of new footage every day, how do you kind of, does that help, and how does that kind of spark ideas when you've kind of got this additional element of, you know, created footage, visual footage?
Well, we like to say it was kind of a live script, so it was such a long process from the beginning to end that we would continue to write right from the beginning. When we were casting, we were already scripting, and then Theresa's story became the narrative that you see today, but then that continued once we were on set. So Theresa and I were there, Sarah would do a take, and then she'd come back and ask us what we thought, and were there anything we needed to hit, could we do that better, or... So that process continued, and then right through to the edit, we were also part of that. So we were continuing to write the whole time. So it was very much in the spirit of the collaborative process, but also this live project that was, you know, open to bringing in whatever needed to serve the story best.
We've got lots of questions that have come through, so let's pick them up. So we've got a question from Angela Jackson. How was the casting approach, and how did the cast prepare for what was perhaps in some cases their first role? Who wants to take that? Maybe I'll go to Bukky and Kosar first, kind of preparing for things that are kind of preparing for this as your first role. What was it like kind of walking in on that first day?
It was definitely nerve-wracking, but there was just so much preparation. I mean, I can't highlight enough the beauty and the development process of this film. I remember being in workshops with the rest of the girls that we met, and Lucy Parley and Jessica Straker, the casting directors, they held a phone, and a camera, and they recorded us throughout the whole process. And as well as that footage being sent to executive producers, as Sarah said, that was Lucy and Jessica's way of almost training us for set days, because they directly told us to never ever look directly into the lens. And I didn't realize that after the process, that's what I really appreciate about this process, is that I was learning as well as acting, as well as performing. I was just doing so much in one. That definitely helped. Sarah and Anu gave us these diaries, and they said, write in this diary every single day and just do your own kind of character development. I think they didn't want us to go into like actor mode, because this was definitely they wanted us to be on the more natural side. They realized that this was a reality that we could identify with. So doing like character notes, I definitely don't dispute that idea of preparation when it comes to a role, but when it comes to this role in particular, I think that when I wake up in the morning and go to school, I don't write it down. I just act. I just move forward. I put my backpack on and I go. So that's why it's suited, not doing thousands of notes and just like living the character.
And I suppose Kosar, with you, because your family kind of in the film is so part of it culturally as well, how did you bring your own cultural heritage to the role and kind of then help the team develop kind of what the family makeup should look like? And did you do that? I'm assuming you did, but I'm asking.
Yeah, Sarah and the art team came over to my house and they kind of just got inspiration from there. Like my mom saw what we eat, how we just go about in the house, and we kind of just replicate that when we were filming Samir's scene and her house, and her brother's preparation for his wedding. So yeah, it was kind of like I said, Rocks is just a beautiful collaborative process from the get-go. So when we were doing that, I was having a conversation with head of art, and we were just like, yeah, that should be there, and no, actually we would eat that, and this would work this way. So yeah, it just flowed and it just happened naturally. Like it wasn't a thing of where it had to be forced or it was like, no, this is not right. It just did it perfectly. I didn't even do much, to be honest. I was just there, but yeah.
Okay, we have a question again for Bukky and Kosar. How has your life changed since the film?
Life has changed. I have more family members, I guess. That's the biggest change. And I'm grateful for that change. That I love that change. I love that I can call these guys not only my colleagues but my family, and it's gonna stay like that. Yeah, that's the biggest change. And obviously, like a new career path in life. Because as I said before, I never really considered acting, but now, like, all I see is acting. All I see is the creative industry.
Seemed that you really enjoyed that writer's room as well.
Yeah, it was great. And I mean, Kosar's not going to say this because she's very humble, but she's also a writer. And I'm looking forward to seeing Kosar's writing in the future.
No, wait. Don't let Bukky downplay herself, because she's a writer. She's going to direct some feature films, short films. Listen, this girl has come to the industry and she's not here to stop. That's all I'm saying.
See a bright future for both of you. So we have a question saying, it's great to see so many women working on this film, both in front of and behind the camera. Was that a conscious decision? Faye, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, it completely was. It felt like if you were going to make a film about young girls, it should be also bubbled with young women, essentially. I think the hardest thing to produce on a film like this is to produce, because essentially the whole point of it is that has to be, as Claire was saying, this live being. And as you know, as a producer, the one thing you don't want is things to be too live being. That's sort of go against the grain of producing. And it felt like the way to maximize everything creatively as well as practically within it was to build a world and a team and a family around it that felt that everybody, from the grip to the writer to the director to the cast to the gaffer, all had, and the gaffer wasn't a woman, but everybody apart from, yeah. We had two male heads of department, and it just felt like it was about bringing the right brains together, basically.
We also wanted for the young cast, and because there were also a lot of supporting actors who came from the schools and have been in workshops as well, beyond the main cast, to be able to look behind the camera and think, you know, I could one day be a designer or a producer or a writer or a director or a camera person. And we wanted there to be sort of mentoring and it to feel an environment where everybody was learning from one another.
And you filmed on location as well, didn't you? Did you film in Hackney, is that right? And kind of, was it a conscious decision to kind of not do set builds and kind of be in kind of a real life situation? And
film chronologically as well, so in and out of the estate, in and out of the school, yeah. Which from a producing point of view, I'm sure wasn't easy.
Total nightmare.
It helps continuity, no?
No, I have to say is the construct of this is sort of, it's the anti-producer construct, which is exactly why it's brilliant, and how the energy the film has and everything about it, it has a beautiful way. It's like an animal in itself. It moves, flows. And that's, to be honest, that's also one of the things that I would really, just to say that our financiers were incredible for that reason. You know, BFI, Film 4, Altitude, Headgear, you know, they all went on this quite a journey in that, you know, the start of this was essentially, we want to make a film about young women. We don't know how we're going to do it. We're not sure when we're going to do it, and we don't know who's going to be in it, but please, can you give us some money to start working that all out? And each stage they were supportive. Don't get it wrong, we had to do quite a lot of convincing too, but they went along with it and they took the challenge with us. And I think that goes a long way for all of them to support us doing that.
And in terms of the location, we shot in Hackney, where Theresa's from, Bukky's from, a lot of the girls lived. Yeah. A lot of the supporting artists were from there.
Sarah, will your next film be accomplished with a similar collaborative approach, assuming you know what film that might be?
I think what was exciting about this film was seeing how many storytellers were coming through, you know, like Kosar and Bukky, who are going to be the directors of the future. And it felt like an opportunity. You know, it was so clear that there were so many stories to be told around these worlds, around these girls. Theresa and Claire have millions of story ideas. You know, these girls have millions of story ideas. So I'm excited about seeing those stories and about sort of being a supportive person in the background, really, for those stories. Not quite sure yet what will be next, but I love this way of working. I love the team and the sort of non-hierarchical nature of it, and the true collaborative nature of it, I think, was really, really exciting to me.
So Theresa, I suppose in that same vein as well, kind of, you've had come from a theatre background, come into film, kind of, how has this kind of changed your experience of kind of the film industry? And do you think it will change how we kind of, what you develop in the future?
To be honest, this was my first experience of the film industry, so I didn't see the big deal. I just like, this obviously is how you should make a film because it works, and why wouldn't the set be filled with all of these amazing women who take off their mics and headsets and give them to you, or a director who will stop shooting to let you spend 40 minutes talking to an actor for her to get the performance that she wants, or, you know, working with a writer who will, you know, go meet you on a weekend in an editing suite for 9 hours to just try and make 66 minutes of the film work. I just assumed that's just how you make films because it just seemed to make sense to me. But it wasn't until speaking to the other guys who've had a lot more experience, and even Kane, Jazz, one of the few male actors we had, who were like, no, this is an exceptional exception to the rule. And all of the things that I thought just made sense were things that people had seemed to be battling for decades in this industry. And I'm really glad that this was my first experience, because I think it has set the bar really high, and there wouldn't be another way that I would make a film again. You just wouldn't go back after an experience this good, and that made so much logical sense to me, and that felt ethical and purposeful and good for everybody's soul. Like, I just think this would be the way that I'd continue to work going forward.
Maybe this is the new normal.
We're hoping. Yeah.
Okay, lots of questions. I think the film is brilliant. Congratulations to everyone. What sort of distribution life do you anticipate?
Well, Altitude, of course, are releasing tomorrow, which we're really, really excited about. We've
Friday.
Friday, sorry.
Yes, the 18th of September.
I'm working a day in advance. That's my problem. Sorry about that. Friday. And it's out in France at the minute too. And then we have also sold the film to Netflix. And at some point in the next few months, it will be arriving on every platform in Netflix too.
That's brilliant. Kind of, yeah, so a global perspective of the London that we all know and love. I thought the film was not only very heartwarming, but very funny. Often a film like this sometimes suffers from getting too heavy. Was this something you were all conscious of, and how did you keep the lightness?
Theresa and Claire?
Yeah, this was yeah. I think from the very beginning, Theresa and I were using the word joy. We wanted to tell a story about young people that would show their joy, especially Black and brown women who don't often get those opportunities on screen. And we knew that the sort of the narrative, the through line is, you know, tragic and moving and can be quite hard hitting, but the whole film is wrapped up in the joy and life of all the women who are in it. So it's really important you turn those corners from feeling the sort of the harshness of it, but then being immediately lifted up again by the way that Rox and her friends maintain their lives and get through life by lifting each other up. That was a really important part for us.
Yeah, I suppose so many times you kind of see this really kind of woeful, miserable kitchen sink working class, but kind of the reality and the truth is that there's fun and lightness in everyone's lives every day, and there's tragedy in everyone's lives every day, and kind of the best way to get through it is with collaboration, solidarity, and a laugh. The process sounds joyful. I'd love to see this kind of work on a smaller screen. Do you think this method of storytelling is feasible for tightly scheduled TV? Faye?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like now once you've done it once, you understand it and you understand where it can go and what you can do better. You know, in any experience, you can reflect on things. So yeah, I think it could definitely work on a small screen. I think anything that, you know, especially if you want to get such a naturalistic performance, a naturalistic world, and have its sort of essence. Going back to the previous question, it's a sort of similar in that female spirit in particular. You can't construct it in a sense of a turnover now action like everyone's talking about. It is a building block of time and effort and months of work and relationships together, and I think that's where the main build of it is. So it definitely could work and shoot if you've got enough prep.
Did your real life experience affect the way you performed in this film? Is there anything you personally related to with your character? That's for Bukky and Kosar.
I mean, I think the biggest question that me and Kosar asked ourselves, when jumping into this process, was what is acting? And of course, acting is real life and imaginary circumstances. So it's impossible for us to not submerge our real circumstances and stuff that we've experienced. But this is definitely a reality that's not mine, and I know that. I know when jumping into the experience, the acting for the very first time, I was struggling because I felt like it was an out of body experience. But later on during the process, I found that is very much within, and you have to tap into stuff that's inside in order to be able to flesh out a character. I definitely think that I'm not Rox, but I have Rox in me. I feel like a lot of Black and brown girls have Rox in her. So that's how I was able to tap into the character, was finding my similarities and also acknowledging my differences so I don't get consumed into a character, because at the end of the day, it is a character. It is a love letter to Theresa's sister. It is a narrative that's different to me, but it doesn't mean that it's not very much a part of me, if that makes sense.
And Kosar?
Yeah, like Bukky said, to be honest, you can't play, like, it's not, I didn't have to play my character because there was a part of me in Samaya. I'm not Samaya, but there was some like similarities that we both had. So yeah, like I did, of course I've had some, I didn't really have to, it wasn't a thing, like when we were coming into this, it was like acting, like, oh my God, like do I have to, you know, act? But it was more of a thing of just, you come to set and you take it from an angle of like how you would, because you're bringing yourself into the character, but at the same time that character is you, if that makes sense. That's kind of how I geared myself into it.
We should also mention your little brother in the film, Emmanuel, who is played by D'Angelo, and kind of working with. Do you have a little brother? Do you have siblings? A younger?
I don't actually have a little brother. I'm the youngest in my family. When we did the chemistry test with D'Angelo, like I have to give my props to Kosar, just being phenomenal with children. She clicked with D'Angelo straight away. It was actually her and Lucy who were like, yeah, that's the one. And I was like, yeah, I love him, but I don't know, because I kind of, like, children often mistake me for like an evil auntie when that's just not how I try and come across. I just think I'm very, I go into like protector mode. So yeah, I don't know, it's a weird flex, but yeah, Kosar was just amazing with D'Angelo. D'Angelo was absolutely amazing. He just, like, I feel like he blew everyone's mind during that chemistry test, just how perfect he seemed. Because, like, I don't believe in perfection, but he seemed so close to perfection. So I was like, is this boy even real? And that literally translated into the film. The film wouldn't be what it is without D'Angelo, and I'm grateful for his generosity and his performance in the film.
And he was, I believe, he's 7 years old when you made the film. Incredible. So we've got a technical question now. Such an informative talk, thank you. What cameras did you use to shoot this beautiful film?
Mirrors. We were going to use the Alexa, but in the end, for various reasons, we didn't. So we used the mirror, and but Helene did amazing grading. I have to say, I've never seen DOP pay such attention to the grading process. So there were lots of film filters put on it and lots of areas dealt with, and so it really transformed in the grade. And also, I think those are the, and the lighting was set up, and it was a really challenging shoot because she had to light for 360 movement. The design was for 360 movement, so it wasn't an easy thing to control from a DOP's point of view. We also had a great other woman working with the camera who's called Rachel Clark, who is a DOP in her own right, and she was operating the second camera, and they were kind of dancing around each other in a really interesting way to sort of cover the scenes.
It was really fascinating to watch both of them work together and their teams, because especially because we were in locations, you didn't have the ability to sometimes, when you build something, you have the ability to make it bigger for more space. And obviously on locations, they were tiny, and they still found a way to construct the lighting and have two cameras there sometimes and be invisible, to try and not to interrupt what the cast were doing and interfere with their eye lines. And it was really incredible what those guys did.
I think we're almost out of time. I just wanted to say that it is an incredible film. Congratulations to all of you. It's something that I've never seen before and didn't realise I've always wanted to see on screen, but because I haven't, I didn't realise what I was really missing. It's a London that I have never seen before. And I just suppose I wanted to end with one last maybe thought from Theresa. Now that it is going to kind of go global and go around the world, what's the kind of thing that you want people to take away from it when they see it?
I guess I want people to be reminded of the potential and joy and magic that young people bring to the table. I used to work in youth and community, and I think sometimes the narrative around young people is often skewed in a way as if they have created this terrible world, when in fact they're living in the world the best they can, and in the world that we have given to them. So I want people to be challenged when they leave the cinema with all of this hope and joy of like, what are we doing to ensure that we are creating an environment where that hope and joy is protected and magnified in young people. And for the film industry, I hope they see that all of the times when I've been questioned about the viability of my story and of our stories and of our authorship, I hope they see an example of why they were wrong and we were right all along.
I want to say congratulations again. Thank you so much, Sarah, Claire, Anu, Theresa, Faye, Bukky and Kosar. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the film. If you haven't already seen it, it's in cinemas from September the 18th and in a couple of months on Netflix. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.